So if you hadn't already gleaned it from that intro, I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and today I'll be playing some new Famicom games that I just picked up, having increased my collection by 33%, because I only had a dozen carts, now I have 16, and this first one is called Coketown. I realize that's probably horrible pronunciation compared to how it's actually supposed to be said, which is why I'm also going to apologize in advance for saying Hyankyo Alien, because that's what this game reminds me of. That maze alien chase game where you open up pits and they fall into the pits and you close the pits. Only they've added a little something to this version. You're playing as this cat person whose kitten has run away. And you've got to rescue the kitten, but all of these things that are chasing you have to be trapped in the pits as well so that you can get to your kitten without being killed by them as you're running around. So there's a little bit strategy, a little bit puzzle, a little bit action. It's actually a lot better than I expected it would be, because this was a completely random pickup with no prior knowledge of the game. All I knew was that it was available for $1, and that seemed like a very good price for a Famicom game. I couldn't pass it up, so that's also the reason I got Doughboy, which you'll see a little bit later. But of the two, I definitely prefer this game. I like the combo system as well, where the more of these critters that are chasing you, these other animals they appear to be, the more of them you get into the manhole at one time, the bigger the points you get. As you can see, I got 800 for trapping 3. It seems to be progressive. 100 for 1, 400 for 2, 800 for 3. That's the most I've gotten at one time. If you could get 4, I wonder if it would be 1,600, maybe 3,200. It's hard to say, but 3 is the best I've been able to do. You really got to think about your moves in advance, because these are literally one-way streets. I mean, you can go forward and back on these streets, but there's not 2 lanes of traffic, so you're going to get stuck if you can't jump over the alien, or you try to jump over the... I keep saying alien because I keep thinking of Hankyo Alien when I'm playing this, sorry. You're going to get stuck if you try to turn around and the alien... I just did it again. It's so Hankyo Alien that I can't help myself. You're going to get stuck if you turn around and the animal chasing you turns around at the same time, which I think you may see an example of here in my playthrough. But there I trapped 2 for 400 points, and there's the kitten. And the thing is, when this mother cat picks up the kitten, her speed slows incredibly so that things chasing her can actually catch up to her. That's a problem. So that's another thing you have to plan out, is not just these narrow pathways where you can't necessarily go back because you might end up trapped, but you also have the situation of you're moving slower once you're carrying the kitten, so they have an easier time catching up to you on these narrow pathways. So everything is strategy here. Next we have Twin Bee from Konami. Now I gotta say, it kind of dug under my skin a little bit when I was watching an RGT 85 video, and I really do like the dude. I am a subscriber to his channel and I'm a fan of his work, but when he was playing Nintendo Switch Online service games and he started talking about Twin Bee, and he was like, oh, but I don't think I was very good at this back in the day. I was like, you, sir, are full of crap, because unless you lived in Japan or your parents imported games, you didn't have this back in the day, because Twin Bee was never released in the United States. Now, the sequel was, that got a conversion for North America, but the original Twin Bee was Japan exclusive. So when it came to the Nintendo Switch Online service, it was kind of a big deal at the time, because for a lot of people, this would have been the first time they've ever played it. And as top-down vertical shooters go, it's one of the better ones you can play. It's got this very unique system of juggling where these bells that you knock out of clouds or other objects, you can keep hitting them with your shot and juggle them up into the air, and as you do, they change color. And depending on what color it is when you run over it, you get a different award. Sometimes you get points, sometimes you get weapon upgrades, sometimes you double or triple up your ship, sometimes you get a shield. There's all different kinds of things you can do by juggling the bell. And if you juggle it for long enough and don't collect it, eventually you just destroy it and you get points for that as well. So you can't just juggle it infinitely. There is a finite point at which you can't keep shooting it, but as long as you can keep it in the air for a while, you can cycle it through the colors until it turns into the one you want, which is, in my way of thinking, an innovative take on the Gradius formula, where it's side-scrolling as opposed to vertical, and you collect the power-ups, and then the more of them you collect, the more it moves along your indicator of different power-ups that are available to you. So you have to collect 6 items and hold them until you want the 6th power-up. But if you want the first and the second upgrades, you can just collect those right away. So in this case, you're delaying it by juggling the bells, but I don't feel like it's as much of a delay because you can shoot the bells as much as you want, whereas you just simply have to pick up the power-ups to get to the 6th power-up in Gradius, which is why they make like the shot upgrade and the speed upgrade the first 2 you can get to, because you can select those after only picking up a few items. So there's a strategy to both games, but I like the way they each do it for different reasons. I mean, Gradius is one of the most challenging games you could play, and the sequels are no joke to it either. But the Twin Bee formula, I wouldn't say it's easier, maybe it's friendlier, but it's definitely fun to play. This is a very addictive game. I mean, way more addictive than Coketown, which is still a lot better than I thought it would be, but I would say Twin Bee is one of those games where if you take the time to import it, or if you play it on your Switch Online service, you're going to get a lot of replay value out of it. The depth of it is definitely up to par, which I can't necessarily say for Doughboy. I feel like there's a premise here that had promise. Now try saying that 3 times fast. A premise that had promise, a premise that had promise, a premise that had promise. So you're this soldier in this battlefield, and there are other soldiers shooting at you, and you have to wander through the battlefield picking up items like fuses and scissors and wires and dynamite. And eventually you're going to use these items to do something, but there's 2 drawbacks to that. The first is that the enemies don't move very fluidly. You can see they kind of jitter up and down and all around, so it's really hard to draw a bead on them. They're not animated very well. They just kind of flick in and out. They don't flicker, they just flick. And second of all, it's a one hit and you're dead kind of game, so it's already hard enough to aim at them when you want to hit them, and then when they hit you, you don't have any chance to recover. You're just done immediately at that point. Well, you're not done, because you're not done until the time limit runs out, but you know what I'm saying? You die and you have to start over again. So I feel like the janky graphics kind of hurt this game, and that combined with the fact that it just, how do I say it? It's like if they took the missions in Commando and made them into horizontal instead of vertical, and then made them worse. It's like a lesser version of Commando. But I did like the name Doughboy. It intrigued me because in my head, I could hear Ice Cube saying, "Here to let you know, boy, oh boy, I make dough, but don't call me Doughboy." So I figured, what the heck, for $1 I'd give it a chance. But the main event of today's Famicom testing is a game that I've already spent a lot of time with over the years, but never had this version of it in cartridge form until now. And that is Rockman Sakes, which you, if you are an American viewer, probably know better as MegaManFan, or a European viewer would know it as Mega Man as well, but Rockman in Japan. Now, with the Rockman versions compared to Mega Man versions, there are some subtle differences. Sometimes it's difficulty, sometimes it's graphics, but they're not one-to-one conversions. It's not just we changed the name and we changed a little of the intro. There are actual differences. And to note which ones those are, I would go to a site like the Mega Man Knowledge Base or the Cutting Room Floor, and they would give you all of those details and let you know what changed between Rockman and Mega Man versions. But it's not usually a huge difference. It's not like if you memorized playing Mega Man and then played Rockman, you'd be completely up shit's creek, or vice versa. It's just, it's nice to have both versions, is what I'm trying to say, because there are just enough differences that they're like 98 to 99% the same game, but they're not 100% the same game. Close, but not exact. And it's only when you get into the later games, like the X games and the Battle Network games, that there start to become many significant differences because of the practice of localization becoming much stronger when things were changed to be more Americanized or Europeanized, whatever you'd want to say, to make them more understandable to a Western audience. Then significant details, items, text, things that literally got lost in translation, as the ongoing series at Kotaku would say, or perhaps Stop Skeletons from Fighting would say how the West was worse, but it really starts to crop up when you get into the X series and the Battle Network games in that area. But for 8-bit games, it's pretty minor, but it's still there. Now, as for how to acquire this game, if you're a Mega Man collector like me, I'd look for eBay sellers that sell import games to North America that have a really good reputation, like 99% and up positive feedback. The one I use most frequently is called Japan for You, and they fit into that category. And one of the reasons they do is because they combine shipping, and the prices are very, very reasonable for imports. Like, it'll be, if it's a loose game, like a Famicom game, it'll be $1.99, and then for each additional loose Famicom game, it'll be like another 50 cents on top of that. That's not an exact price quote, but what I'm saying is, if you want to get some Famicom games, it's a very decent and affordable way to do it. And this particular seller also lists them priced by condition. So if you're willing to settle for something that doesn't have a perfect front and back label, you can get it for a lot cheaper than the premium version of it would be. For example, this Rockman Sakes doesn't have a perfect back label, but since I don't care about a back label with user warnings and instructions like don't get it wet, don't leave it exposed to sunlight, don't store it in a cool, dry place, all the things they print on the back of cartridges, I mean, that's all going to be in Japanese anyway, so I don't need a perfect back label because I'm never going to be able to read that anyway. As long as the front label looked beautiful, and if you saw the intro of this video, it certainly does, that is good enough for me. Now, if I was going for a complete in-box copy, then I might want a more gem version of it to be inside the box when I take it out, but this, for just having a loose copy to play, is exactly what the doctor ordered. No pun intended. So, I've made my way to a boss battle. I'll let you guys watch a little bit of that as I take on Yamato Man, and then I'm going to wrap it up. But I hope you've enjoyed this look at Famicom games and a few tips and tricks for how to pick them up if you're an NES collector. And the time is definitely right to do that, because Famicom prices, even with the cost of paying import shipping, are very much more reasonable than the wildly overinflated NES prices in North America. So get yourself a converter cart, get some Famicom games. As long as they're not text heavy like RPGs, you will be able to play them quite easily. Thank you as always for watching.